Hello, hello, hello.
What is up? What is up?
Hey, Pop Girlies.
Hello, Pop Girlies.
What's up? How are we doing? First
Welcome.
episode.
Yes, welcome to episode number one of the Pop Girlies podcast.
I'm Levi.
I'm Drew.
And I'm Maria.
And yeah, I think we're ready to go on this adventure of pop music and of girlies and of opinions and facts and feelings and fun.
So, Levi, why don't you tell the people what is the genesis of this podcast?
The genesis of this podcast. Okay, let me give you some background, everybody. Um, yeah, so the three of us are best friends. We are besties from college. We all met at Loyola University, Chicago. Go Blurs.
Full title.
Yeah, full title, girl, full title. I can give the coordinates too. Latitude. Um, and yeah, I think one of the biggest bonds, maybe the biggest bond of us as friends, is the love of pop music that we have. I think that we all love music so much. I think we all have very personal connections to music. I think music really helps us kind of define the way that we look at life and the way that we understand the world. And it also dominates pretty much every conversation that the three of us have as friends. The kind of concept and name of pop girlies. We're the first people who ever came up with the phrase pop girly, by the way.
First people.
For yeah, we invented the phrase main
Legendary.
pop girl, legendary legend star. Um, and
Star
yeah, so that
statements and legends.
and legends. And so this came from a group chat. Our group chat is named Pop Girlies because all three of us pledge allegiance to a different pop girly. Drew, who do you pledge allegiance to?
Miss Katy Perry.
Maria.
Miss Lady Gaga.
And I pledge allegiance to eco terrorist Taylor Swift. And yeah, and so pretty much
On a
everything that we
plane
talk
right
about
now.
on a plane right now, polluting the earth, her favorite thing in the world to do. And pretty much all that we talk about is music. Every single day we are spamming the group chat with gifs and lyrics, and like opinions and rants about albums and songs and artists. And I think the three of us just kind of felt like, okay, what's like a productive creative outlet for all of this that isn't just iMessage. And I think that this is something the three of us have wanted to do for a really long time as friends, as pop music lovers. And yeah, so this is a podcast really just dedicated to exploring our love of music, exploring our love of the album as an art form. I think this is going to be a really great opportunity to like share music that means a lot to each of us with each other. Like I'm really excited to like talk about albums that I love a lot. I'm excited to talk about albums that Drew loves and that Maria loves. So yeah, that's kind of the background and I think kind of the goal of the podcast, really just talking about pop music and why we love it.
And of course, pledging our devotions to our one true pop girlies ourselves.
Of course. Of course.
Correct. And as we start to go through, you'll notice that when we are talking about a specific album, typically the person who is the bigger stan of that artist will be introducing the album.
Hmm.
And we decided to start the episode number one with an album that has quite a bit of overlap for the three of us. So that's a little bit more neutral. So we'll get a little bit more into that once we start talking about the album. But we do have some orders of business that we are going to get to before we talk about the album.
Right. So, at the beginning of every episode, we thought since we're covering one specific album every episode, we thought it would be really cool to kind of give updates on what we are currently listening to that doesn't necessarily relate to the album that we're covering. So, at the beginning of every episode, we thought we would do a hot track individually so we can kind of share a little taste, give our little updates for the week. So, we will just each share one track that we've been really resonating with. Um, so Levi, why don't you share your little hot track this week?
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like this year for music has just been insane. I mean, like
So good.
if we were just listening to music that's been released this year, it's like kind of like an embarrassment of riches. Um, I've been loving Short and Sweet. I've been listening to so much Short and Sweet. I've been listening to so much
Yes.
of the Magdalena Bay
Yes.
album. As we
So
exit
good.
Brat Summer and go into Imaginal Disc Fall, like that's kind of
We're feeling major disconcerted.
ma- exactly. But I think that I can't have my first hot track of Pop Girlies be anything other than um the greatest song ever written by the reincarnation of Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and
At first I thought you were saying Bach from Wicked. I was like, yeah, she is that. And
how cr-
Bach.
how crazy do you have to be to think Bach from Wicked over Bach the composer?
I hear the name Bach and I am initially going to that Ethan Slater Wicked production poster. That's
Oh,
all I
into
see.
to your sleep paralysis demon.
Correct. Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
why would you give somebody who has red hair a bob that makes him look like Chucky? Why would you make that decision? Like
Well, you
You
know
he
know,
looks
what?
like,
We're gonna be sat in the theater and we're gonna find out.
oh, we are. I mean, but he does look like a really rough little Orphan Annie. Like Orphan Annie, if Daddy Warbucks in it, if the adoption fell through, she ends up back on the street. She's
and in her
poking
local
needles at her
production of
arm.
Wicked.
Yes, like he does not look good. Anyways, no, not Bach the Munchkin, Bach the composer. Of course, the song and artist I'm talking about is Diet Pepsi by Addison Rae. Here's the thing.
Yes.
Addison Rae's here to save pop music. It wasn't in the initial plan, but she saw the opportunity to become the biggest pop star in the world, and she's taking it. Diet Pepsi's perfect song. Diet Pepsi, first of all, Diet Pepsi has no right to be as good of a song as it is, and I don't think Addison Rae has missed with anything she's released so far. Like every song in the EP's fantastic, but like Diet Pepsi, it's her first release on a major studio. I think she signed to Columbia Records, um, major label, not major studio. And it's amazing. It's like so fresh and cool. There's definitely, I think, a lot of Lana in it. I think there's like kind of some like 90s, 2000s influences, but it also feels very current. Um, and it feels very singular. Like I can't think of other people who are making songs like Diet Pepsi. It has
Yeah.
one of the greatest key changes I've ever heard in a song
I was gonna
ever.
say, for me, it's that key change.
The key change is
Yeah.
crazy. And like when that chorus comes in, like it's just so undeniable. I mean, Diet Pepsi, anybody who says anything bad about Diet Pepsi, I think is either um like the worst human being who's ever lived or has never heard Diet Pepsi and just wants to be cool because you cannot deny Diet Pepsi. And I'm saying this is somebody who's drinking an ice cold Diet Coke right now, who vomits when there's a Diet Pepsi on the menu, but that's the level of serve that we got. That Addison Rae's making me say
Correct.
good things about Diet Pepsi. Yeah, that's my hot track. That's the hottest track that's ever lived,
It's
by the way.
it's
Yeah.
a great first hot track.
Yeah, it's Diet
Um,
Pepsi.
it's Diet Pepsi. Maria, what's your hot track?
Yeah. Well, to shift the gears a little bit to a genre that we'll probably seldom talk about, my track actually comes from an Irish rock band called Fontaines DC. And it's a song
You're
called
not
Bug.
thinking about our boy.
You are not thinking about our boy.
What is that
Shout
from?
out. It's from
That
the
is a
Broski
Brittany Broski
Report.
quote.
Yeah.
Oh,
She is a
Oh,
hoot and a
and
half.
Maria and I are Brittany Broski stands. Brittany, if you would like to join the podcast, you know,
Brittany, if you'd
you can
like
be
to
the resident
join,
beehive.
yes, exactly. That'd be lovely. So shout out to Broski Nation. Um, but but yeah, so Fontaines DC, they just released a new album called Romance, which is so incredible. It's like really all I've been listening to lately. And some of their other music as well. But my favorite track on the album, at least at present, is the song called Bug, which is very good. It is like kind of a jangle rock kind of sound of like the 80s and early 90s, which I really gravitate towards. But so good, so fun, very autumnal, as we're like Levi
mm.
said, shifting into fall. So I've been loving that album a whole lot, and that band's super great. So that's my track.
Sweet. And my hot new track, I have been getting a lot. I've been kind of like this year is an embarrassment of riches, but also I feel like there hasn't been a lot of like brand new albums coming out as of recent until Short and Sweet. I feel like there was kind of a little break. I don't know. Have you all
Mm.
been feeling that as well? Maybe
Yeah,
not.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was really loving Short and Sweet, but then I was like listening to it way too much. And so I thought, okay, let me get back into other things that I was like still digesting. And so I really have been getting into Ethel Cain again. You know, we are all
Daughters of
Queen.
Cain.
Yeah,
We are
we
Yeah.
are
all
all
daughters
daughters
of
of
Cain.
Cain. And I've been really loving the song Sun Bleached Flies. It's probably my second favorite because the greatest song of all time is on that album. Sorry, Diet Pepsi. Um, so
No.
yeah, Sun Bleached Flies would have to be my pick of the week. Love Ethel. We
Levi,
cannot wait to do her album on this pod.
oh my God, that's going to be a rapture. But question real quick for Levi, do you think that Diet Pepsi is better than any singular song off of Preacher's Daughter?
Oh, how could you do this to me?
I mean, American Teenager has to be like greatest song of all time.
Here's the thing.
Made
Okay,
the Obama list.
here's what I say. Well, Diet Pepsi is gonna make the Obama list at the end of the year if his gay intern knows what's good for him. Because uh if they want Kamala to win, it better be on the list, is all I'm gonna say. Um, okay, here's my opinion. I think Diet Pepsi is better than anything on the album. However, I don't think Diet Pepsi is as good as the Sun Bleached Flies Dancing on My Own remix, which
Ooh.
if you have not listened to that, that is actually like it's
That,
like
yeah.
it's actually not it's the recording of angels. Like it is what heaven sounds like. It makes me cry every time I listen to it. I can't tell you how many times I've cried in like at my job, like in the office at my desk to the Sun Bleached Flies Dancing on My Own cover.
Which is funny because Sun Bleached Flies just on its own, the production is so
Is
horrifically
incredible.
sad.
But like having it be that like perfect like dance pop sad dance floor euphoria moment and then it be about like Ethel's soul leaving her body and accepting death, it's just if it's
It
meant to
doesn't
be,
get
it'll
It's
better.
be.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder what we would have to do to get that actually to play in the club.
I would do anything. I would. Yeah, I can't think of anything that I wouldn't do, actually. I would commit
Well, we
felonies.
got a DM. We got a DM.
Yeah, we could, you know what? If we tried hard enough, we might just be able to make it happen. So, shout out to our local club that we frequent all the time here in Chicago. Shout out to Scarlett.
Shout out
Scarlet.
to
So
Scarlett.
so Scarlet it was.
Maroon.
Scarlet. Yeah.
Scarlett.
Maroon.
So, that is Levi's, Andrew's, and Maria's hot
Hot new
tracks.
track. Yep.
Hot tracks. Pop Girlies hot tracks.
So
So,
Maria, how about you tell us what album we're about to digest this week?
absolutely. Well, like I said before, we are starting off the podcast by picking an album that has it's really one of the ones that's up there with like the most overlap with the three of us that the three of us enjoy the most. And as the biggest, you could say, Beyonce stan of the three of us, we are going to be talking about Renaissance by Beyonce.
Woo! Renaissance.
Woo. So, what we're going to be doing when we do album reviews and conversations is we are going to start off with some album background. So, we'll go into some statistics, some numbers, some math, and do a little bit of a conversation around critical reception and how the album was received and so just some more background in general. And then we'll talk a little bit more broadly about how we each feel about the album and our connections to it and how we feel. And then we'll kind of go from there with some more ratings and reviews and all that sort of stuff. So I'll go ahead and get us started with some background and all that good stuff. So, Renaissance, Beyonce. This was released on July 29th, 2022. It's got 16 songs and it's an hour and 2 minutes, which again, I feel is like a little bit of a longer album, but with
Definitely long.
definitely a little bit longer, but like with the way that this album is not to get too ahead of myself, but perfect. this could have been a 24-hour long album, and I could have still asked for it to be longer. So,
I kind of feel like
doesn't
an hour is the best length though. That's like my ideal. I almost always am like wanting more when something's like 45. I feel like that probably is more typical, but I think hours kind of perfect.
That's fair. That's really fair. Um, so for some numbers and stuff, Renaissance received a 91 on Metacritic, which is
Great.
pretty incredible. A 9.0 on Pitchfork, and it also got the best new music distinction of that week, of course. And when it comes to all of Pitchfork's listings and everything for the year in review, they did name Renaissance the best album of 2022. And from the quote that, or not the quote, but the kind of write up that they had included for Renaissance on that album list, I wanted to just kind of quote the very end of that because when I read it, it actually made me kind of emotional, which kind of goes into like my connection with the album too. And the quote comes from Isabella Herrera, and she wrote, quote, "As the world burns, Renaissance invites us to remember what it's like to feel good," end quote. And that, I think, in a nutshell, is the best way to describe this album because, I mean, this was definitely a product of COVID in a way, and we can kind of talk about how it came to be. And we know that Renaissance is a 3-act project from Beyonce, and
Well,
COVID
do
and
we know? Has Beyonce told you?
I guess, does Beyonce know it's a 3-act project? So, I mean, supposedly, right? We're led to believe. So yeah, there's some
Wait,
kind of
actually though, like did she say something about a 3 act structure or
Yes,
do we
yeah,
just
yeah,
think? Oh, okay.
no, it's 3x.
Okay.
yes. So yes. But yeah, definitely like COVID has a lot to do with why this album got released when it did. So that is a huge piece of it. You know, that kind of "as the world burns" quote that was written for Pitchfork really resonated with me. And kind of going into the genre and the feel and identity of the album a bit. It's definitely, and well, actually, let me backtrack because we all know that Beyonce is probably like one of the hardest artists to like fit into a genre specifically. So kind of just like to rattle off a few while the album like really encapsulates a ton of genres is dance, house, pop, and rap. The entire project really is an homage to Black queer art, especially when it comes to the ballroom dance scene, voguing, disco. It has a really interesting fusion of a lot of different aspects of music and those kind of scenes that span across multiple different decades. You know, the whole album isn't just a throwback to, you know, the dance scenes of old or disco of the 70s. Like it's very much today and the past all at the same time while also like being really futuristic. So again, it's just such a crazy thing to have all into one album. It's so amazing. And same with the collaborations and samples on the project too. Just really speak volumes to what the album is paying homage to. So we've got some collaborations and samples from T.S. Madison, Kevin Aviance, Big Frida, Kevin Jay-Z Prodigy, Grace Jones, and there's a ton of inspirations that are into the album, but not only like in the album, but also came through in the tour interludes. And Drew and I actually had the ultimate pleasure of being able to
The
go to
privilege.
the privilege
What
and the pleasure.
privilege?
What privilege. so so we actually got to go, and the interludes I feel like really had like the golden
Insane.
nuggets of like what made the album so special, but like things that weren't actually on the album itself. Like one of the interludes included the song that's called The Percolator, which is a major, major track of the Chicago dance scene from a couple decades ago. That's a really big one. And I actually grew up with my mom playing that kind of music in the house all the time. She was like very into that kind of dance scene. And there was actually, because I'm from the Metro Detroit area, there was a TV show on locally in Detroit, very similar to Soul Train that we all know and love, called The Scene, that my mom was actually on once. But she
Selena
was
Gomez and The Scene.
and The Scene. But yeah, like that's like really where like her love of music kind of was instilled into me through that kind of like really energetic, really happy dance music. So like when I heard the Percolator during the tour, I straight up lost it. So that was everything. Um, Another thing too that I kind of wanted to quote from that same article from Pitchfork is I think another really great couple words to describe the album and how it's so much all at once is that it's quote a DJ mix and a history lesson all at once end quote.
Mm.
So it really is something to not only enjoy but to learn from. And through having listened to this album front to back constantly for about 2 years now, there's still so many things that get uncovered as you listen to it. And the more you look into the samples and who she specifically chose to collaborate with to produce the album, it really just comes through at how incredible the project is as a whole. Um, so that's kind of some background there. And I did also want to mention the infamous Grammys of 2023, which
Yikes.
is
Yikes.
deeply, deeply upsetting. And I will say, and as Drew and Levi know, I'm a former, and I kind of reluctantly, but kind of not, say former Harry Styles stan. Had a lot of fun while I was standing, but not anymore. And I think what really sealed it for me was the Harry's House Album of the Year win, which is in no way, shape, or form deserved at all.
No.
So,
Oh, now you're dragging him through the mud, girl.
girl, it's over. He better if he wants another Grammy, he better try to make something that's better than Renaissance, which will never happen.
I mean, the
So,
house, Harry's house, it got repossessed by the bank. It is foreclosure. He's
correct.
now renting. He's trying to save up for a condo. Maybe the next one can be Harry's condominium. Yeah, crazy. It's just like no way, shape, or form is Harry's house better than Renaissance or like I don't know. I
It's not
think
even comparable. Like,
it's
not
not
one
comparable.
song on Harry's House is comparable to anything on Renaissance.
Well, and not even that, because like in my mind, the title album of the year, like I think it's a mixture of both artistic triumph and also like cultural impact. Like I do think that like there is some level of like cultural impact that should be considered because it's not best album released this period. It's the album of the year, the album that has the highest quality, that most defined the year. And that just wasn't Harry's House. I mean, that
Yeah.
era, I think for him was so much more defined by the success of As It Was. I think that like if you look back at like this era of Harry, like it was like As It Was is a huge hit and Don't Worry Darling. I think the album itself is like not necessarily the conversation dominator that something like Renaissance was. Renaissance was obviously a huge commercial success, a huge critical success. I just don't. There's kind
It's
of like
literally
no answer for it.
perfect.
It's perfect. Like racism is the only answer that I can really think about as to why it didn't happen. Like racism and misogyny.
Yeah. And it's like if I were someone 10 years younger than myself, if I in 10 years listened to Harry's House and thought about the year 2023 or rather 2022, would I be able to be like, "Oh my God, this was the sound of that year?" And then be able to
That's a
learn about
great thing to
what the
say,
world
yeah.
was like in 2023 or excuse me again 2022, like would I be like, oh okay, this is kind of like the temperature gauge for what that year was like.
It's not at
i
all.
I just think that it would have been so much more impactful for like future listeners to be able to like read a Wikipedia page and be like, album of the year, Renaissance, let me listen to that, and then through the lens of history be like, oh okay, so like the pandemic had like really just ended, people's lives kind of got to resume the way that we were used to them happening. And that's kind of a celebration of that. And Harry's House is not that. So,
No,
so for me, really, I think what makes me so upset about it is that there's nothing to like learn from when it comes to Harry's House. Like, and sure, it's a fine album. Like, I enjoyed listening to it. I had my moment with it for sure. But I think
When
Renaissance
it
just like does more for the culture.
it also, like, I think is a disservice to him as well. Like, even though I didn't really like Harry, like Harry's House to me, I think we're all in agreement. It's probably our third favorite of his three.
Correct.
Yeah,
And I feel
definitely.
like it kind of like does a disservice to like him because I literally am like, I don't want to listen, I don't care to listen to Harry's House ever again
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I kind of get that weird taste in my mouth, which like sucks because I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that we have to say is like to give context, to exist in the context, as Kamala Harris would say, um,
Right.
this isn't like just like a one-off moment where Beyonce should have won. This is the third nomination
Yes.
in a row where like she was clearly considered the most considered, I would say, by the majority of music listeners and critics and kind of general society as the person who should have won, and it's the third time in a row that she hasn't won. Obviously the last two, she was nominated in the 2015 Grammys for Beyonce self-titled. She lost to Beck Morning Phase, which is a song, an album that nobody other than 40-year-old dads have listened to. And then at the 2017 Grammys, she lost, Lemonade lost to 30 by Adele, which
25.
right, 25. I mean, sorry,
30 also lost to Harry's House.
I mean, girl, they all sound the same, so it doesn't really matter
Oh,
what
oh,
number you
oh,
call them.
stop.
Oh,
Oh,
oh.
and that's shade.
No, and it's crazy that like I'm thinking about it now because I feel like all of the three albums that she should have won for, they all seem like huge advancements for her, each one of
Yes,
them.
completely agree.
And it sucks because I
Yep.
feel like what she's lost to are like kind of step backs for the
Completely
artists.
agree. The regressions,
Like
absolutely.
it's just like
That
it's
is
so
just so
stupid.
crazy. That's such a good
Well,
point.
and not only like advancements for her, like personally, like her artistic, but like the industry as a whole. I mean,
Yes,
Beyonce
100%.
self-titled changed the way that music is released. Music is released on Fridays now instead of Mondays.
Correct.
Surprise drops are a popular form of album release now. It pioneered the visual album. I think Lemonade really advanced the kind of concept of a visual album. It dominated like conversations about race and politics, in a way that no other album in recent memory really has. And then obviously what Marie's been talking about with the Renaissance kind of like symbolizing a transition out of like the extreme isolation of like the pandemic and lockdown. It really just doesn't make any sense. Harry's House is like an artistic regression, in my opinion, from Fine Line, which I think is a really great album. I love Fine Line. Fine Line is something I revisit. Harry's House, I don't. I don't really
And
find there
even
to
his
be a lot of
self-titled, I
substance.
love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
self-titled is so much better. And it's
Yeah.
also like Harry's House to me is the most faceless of the three. It there's kind of a generic quality that I had found lacking in the other two, and I thought that was really refreshing and interesting. But there's just not
Yeah.
a lot of cool things happening, in my opinion, in Harry's House. There's songs I love. Um, I love Little Freak. Little Freak is a great song.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Me remembering what all of the songs are and sound like
Yeah, I
right
was
now
gonna
in this
say
moment.
it's not really memorable at all.
it's not memorable. It's not memorable. It's like it's like a pleasant listen. It's not bad. It's not a bad
Yeah.
album. And
Yeah.
I think it's a pleasant, enjoyable listen. But then you compare it to something that is the groundbreaking kind of album that Renaissance is, and like what Maria's
Yeah.
been talking about as it's both like a phenomenal piece of music, but it's also like music history. Like she's giving a history lesson. She's really kind of showing her chops both as a vocalist, a producer, an arranger, and a historian. And then you compare it to something like Harry's House, which just kind of feels so fizzy and like shallow in comparison, which I don't know. It's not what should have happened at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was already
Well,
pissed at that Grammys because freaking Bonnie Raitt stole All Too Well's Song of the Year.
oh
So
my God.
I
That
was
was
Even
already,
Bonnie
it was a
Raitt
very
was
it was
shocked.
a very gaggy Grammys for sure.
yeah, it
It
was
It
was
was.
bizarre.
and it was like honestly it was a pretty good year for music, I thought. Like it obviously wasn't
Yeah.
like this year, but it yeah, weird.
I mean, it was really strong. I mean, there was Kendrick was up for Album of the Year, Adele was up for Album of the Year, Beyonce, obviously. Um, Lizzo, and Lizzo won Record of the Year, which was also kind
Right.
of a surprise.
Yeah.
I was expecting Harry to win Record of the Year, and then
Yeah.
Beyonce or Adele to win
Yeah.
album. It's just
Weird.
kind
Mm-mm.
of bizarre. Yeah,
Mm-mm. We need Pop
Mm-mm.
Girlies up in the Recording Academy because
we
there's some
do.
things to fix, clearly.
There's some. There's yes,
And our
agreed.
3 votes can change everything, girl.
Yeah,
Change the world,
change the world, girl.
for real. So, enough about Harry Styles, more about Beyonce. Um, so that's really my background. Kind of just wanted to talk about the Grammys since I feel like, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a stain on the holistic overview of Renaissance. However, it's a very small stain. So yeah, that's really my background. Something I also kind of wanted to say that I was alluding to before is that we know that Renaissance is a 3-act trilogy. Renaissance, as we know, came first. At the time of this recording, Act Two was also out. Cowboy Carter was released in March of this year.
Imagine if she dropped Act 3 like this Friday.
Tomorrow. Yeah, well, so something that is also speculated because we got, dance, house music on Renaissance, country on Cowboy Carter. However, don't get it twisted that Cowboy Carter is a Beyonce album. It's not a country album. So
I
remember,
refuse to get it twisted.
thank you. But it is speculated that Act Three is either going to be rap or it's going to be rock. And I know the three of us are in agreement about us hoping that it's rock.
We need rock.
It
We
needs to be
need.
We,
rock, and Haley Williams needs to get her ass in a studio.
You're
oh
so
my God.
right. I want an
Imagine,
Alanis feature
oh,
too.
Alanis.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Ooh, ooh, imagine like a
Honestly, give me
Stevie
like,
Nicks.
And she's covered Alanis on tour before. I
She
think she
has.
did a You Oughta Know cover for one of her tours like a couple years ago.
Oh, that's
oh my
So
awesome.
God.
yeah.
Have you guys heard her cover from Glastonbury of Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon?
Oh,
No.
that's so cool. No, I
Okay,
haven't.
it has to be rock. Like I feel like she's given us so many hints that it should be rock.
It's, oh my
I
God,
also
it
I
has
think
to
it would
be.
make sense for it to be rock because she's obviously covered rap a lot in previous albums. I think especially in the joint album with Jay-Z, like that pretty much
Yes,
Everything
the
is
is
Carters,
love.
yes.
yes, like that pretty much just is a rap album. And like it wouldn't make sense for me because I think the whole kind of thesis of the project is like music genres that are kind of now seen as like more white dominated genres, but had their roots in black musicianship. And, black musicians and artists were the ones who pioneered these genres that then got like
Yeah.
whitewashed. And I think
Yeah.
it's like a reclamation of the sorts. And that really wouldn't make sense with rap to me because rap obviously is, I think, still seen as like a, a genre where black musicians and, musicians of color really thrive.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so for our kind of personal overviews and thoughts and feelings, who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Let's do it.
So I listened to it when it first came out, as like most people did, and I really liked it. I was immediately struck by how the whole thing just like runs together really smoothly, and
Mm.
like the transitions were just so, I think for me, just like so impactful. Um, I was especially gagged, I think, because we had obviously heard Break My Soul before the album came out. And I think a huge part of listening to it was hearing the kind of energy into Break My Soul, the Big
Hmm.
Yes.
Frida kind of.
Oh my
I
God.
was like immediately freaked out by that because it was so good. But I listened to it like for that weekend that it came out, and I really loved it. Obviously, I like recognized how smart and amazing it was. But then honestly, I didn't really come back to it until um I knew we were gonna go to the tour. So
Mhm.
she didn't announce the tour until like very long after the album came out, I thought. Like I think it came out in
Yeah.
the summer, and then she kind of started the tour talk at like the beginning of the next year. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
so we obviously got tickets, which were crazy. I had to pretend being a Verizon customer to get pre-sale tickets because it was
Yeah.
right after Taylor Swift Ticketmaster Gate, and they weren't allowing like a fourth of the people that they did for the Eras Tour to get codes. So Maria and I were codeless
Yep.
for that
Yeah, but Drew
pre-sale.
hacked the system. It
I
was
did. I
pretty
hacked.
stunning.
I pretended to be a Verizon customer and I got tickets. And so I kind of just waited to listen to it more until started seeing like the other shows on social media and like obviously looking forward to it because of how good she sounded on all of the tour stuff. And so about a week before we went to the show, I listened to it again and got really into it, but I didn't really know like every lyric or anything like that. And then we went to the tour and I was gooped and gagged. I loved it
Hmm.
so much. Um, Seeing it live really just enhanced the experience for me. Like before the tour, I was like listening to it on shuffle and like not like truly experiencing it all as an album artwork.
Hmm.
But now you bet I will never be pressing shuffle on Renaissance.
Never
Um,
pressing shuffle.
But
Because
yeah, it
as
was just amazing. I'd never seen her live before either. And so seeing that was like insane. Like it being the first live experience of Beyonce. And then
yeah.
obviously I went, so I had to go again because I'm from Kansas City. And midway through the tour, she changed it so that the last stop would be Kansas City. So me and my mom went, and it was again amazing. And then of course Marie and I went to the movie,
Oh my
which was
gosh.
another amazing experience. You felt like you were there again. Beyonce,
Yes.
please release a live album. And
We need the live album. We need the film on streaming so that we can go back to the summer of Renaissance. We need it so bad. And yeah, when Drew and I went to see the film in theaters, we went to the Alamo Draft House here in Chicago, which was so magical and it was so much fun. We were probably the rowdiest ones there. It was incredible. And actually,
it
the
really
Shea
was like being there
Coulee,
again, truly.
yes, yeah, yeah. And the Shea Coulee of Chicago's drag scene was actually there just by happenstance. We were like, OMG, there's Shay. So that was magic. But yeah, so much fun.
Yeah. So hearing it live was what really set me. And now it's like what probably top five album of all time for me, for sure. So yeah, I really love it. And even hearing like, well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but even hearing Cowboy Carter, it just like solidified how individual Renaissance is for me. Like insane. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts. Until we get into like our like tops or things like that. So yeah, Levi, what about you?
Yeah, so, I think I'm kind of happy that we're starting off with an album that like I know for both of you, it's like this album I know is on like your like Mount Rushmore of albums.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I think it's
For
interesting
sharks.
because I think I'm kind of like the outlier probably, in terms of like feelings about this particular album. I think my relationship to it is a bit more complicated. And so I just want to like get it out of the way that like objectively, like it's a masterpiece. It's a masterclass of music creation and vocal arrangement. The transitions are just like incredible. The way that this album is sequenced, is pretty phenomenal. But I think that like for me, I kind of first have to say that I am somebody who listens to me. My love of music comes from lyrics and storytelling. I fell in love with music growing up because I loved country music, and country music is obviously a genre that's about narratives and storytelling and lyrics. And so that's definitely the way that I still process music. I obviously love great production. I love great vocal moments and vocal deliveries, but like my entryway into like loving an album or loving a song is definitely lyrics.
Yeah.
Dance music is probably like not a genre I particularly like gravitate towards. I love Maria that like you have this very like deep personal connection with house music, and like this album really is kind of like a love letter to the cities that you've lived in, which I think is really beautiful. I
Yeah.
don't I don't have that. Uh this is
Idaho?
yeah, this is not a love letter to Southern Idaho.
Dang it.
So yeah, so
Beyonce.
I
Beyonce,
that's
get on
actually
that.
Act three is
Act three.
actually Southern Idaho. There's the
Her.
I don't even know what that would be like I
Act
don't
three, Pocatello.
it would be like Mormon like choir hymnal, like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir would be on it.
Ooh.
Um
Wait. That's tea, actually.
That
We've
kind of
been
be a
waiting
serve.
for that.
Wait, that would kind of be a serve actually. So yeah, like I think that like this is not the kind of album that like I normally like fall in love with. Beyonce is an artist that I love. I've loved for a really long time. I think I became obsessed with Beyonce uh when Self-Titled was released. Self-Titled was one of like the first albums that like really made me invest in the album as an art form and like not just like, oh, this is a song that I like, or like this is like a group of songs that I like, but this is like an album that is telling a story and exploring themes. It was released when I was in junior high and middle school. I was in the eighth grade, so very like formative. Lemonade is a really important album to me, and I think that like the reason why those two albums specifically really got me invested in Beyonce as an artist is because those to me are the albums where she is really investing in narrative and storytelling. I think Self-Titled is I would say it's her most personal album. I mean, it's pretty like unguarded. She's talking about postpartum depression. She's talking about her sexuality and her sexual life kind of post being a mother. She's talking about grief. And then obviously Lemonade is this just really beautiful, elegant song cycle about betrayal in a romantic relationship and the kind of path to reconciliation. And so both of those albums are structured like singer-songwriter albums. And I think that's kind of looking back at it. I didn't realize this when they were getting released, but now like I could be like, okay, that's why I love these albums so much. And that's what made me able to get on this Beyonce train is because she's making albums the way that like I naturally kind of am inclined to like. Renaissance isn't like that. Renaissance is so much about the sonics and it's about her vocal delivery and it's about kind of the genre or deconstruction of genre as a whole. And so when Renaissance first came out, I listened to it and obviously it was like this like level of musicianship is crazy. There were a few songs that like really stood out to me initially. Alien Superstar, Cuff It. Um, but and I loved Break My Soul obviously when it was released, but it didn't really have a lot of legs for me. And I think a lot of that is just because it's not the kind of music that I normally love. And there were other albums coming out around that time that like were like that. So it didn't really have a lot of staying power for me. It's something that I respected rather than loved. And I would say the thing that made me get so much more personally invested in it um, was Cowboy Carter coming out. And it's because I think Cowboy Carter, I think, is an album that I admire a lot. I respect Cowboy Carter. I think there's a lot of really great moments, but I do think that it is the weaker of the two. And I think that listening to Cowboy Carter kind of makes you realize, oh, like Renaissance is like perfect. Like Renaissance is like just a perfect piece of music. I don't really think that there's like anything wrong with it. And so after like not feeling super satisfied with Cowboy Carter, both as a Beyonce lover and a country music lover, I definitely kind of found my way back to Renaissance and got a lot more like personal enjoyment out of it. And now it's like something that like I listen to most frequently. I don't think it'll ever be like my favorite Beyonce album. I think that's pretty much always going to be self-titled, but uh I mean it's like it's great. Like it's just I don't know what else you can say bad about it. There's like nothing to criticize, you know.
Literally.
Well,
I
Arlen,
resonate. Yeah, I resonate with what you're saying a lot too about like Cowboy Carter with like kind of comparing the two, which like it's hard not to do since like they were kind of similar like genre
Yeah, of
um
course. I mean I think
like
it's like
milestones.
yeah, and it's like they're like sister albums. They're like related to each other. So like of course it's
Yeah,
like to go back to like my pop girl, like it's like Folklore and Evermore are always going to be in conversation with each other. And like
totally.
Renaissance, Cowboy Carter, and then whatever this inevitable Act 3 album, they're always going to be related to each other, compared to each other. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely kind of resonate with what you're saying too. And yeah, I know kind of we've talked about our thoughts on Cowboy Carter before, and I know that we've kind of said like it's like on the longer side-ish, even though like we literally just talked about Renaissance being like a full hour. And we'll definitely have a moment where we talk about Cowboy Carter a little bit more in depth. I know something that the three of us have talked about before too is like all of the interludes on the album, kind of making it feel a lot longer and
Yeah.
making it just like feel a little bit different from Renaissance.
Yeah.
And
I
something
think
I'd
it's
like to
also,
say,
oh,
oh,
sorry,
wait, go
Maria, you
ahead.
go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I think it's also like it's pretty uneven. Like Renaissance starts at a 10 and it maintains the level of quality and the level of energy the entire time. Like nothing ever dips. There's no
There's
peaks or
no dip in
valleys.
Renaissance.
Like you're at a 10. You start at a 10 with that intro of I'm that girl, and then you're at that same level all the way through Summer Renaissance. And with Cowboy Carter, like Cowboy Carter's like roller coaster to me. Like you like it's just you're constantly like going up and down. I think the pacing of it is like not my favorite. It's like I think there's a lot of like there's moments where like okay, kind of like ballads are grouped together, and then you get like more up tempos. Then you kind of like the end of the album is kind of moving away from like super acoustic instruments into like kind of something else, and it just I don't know. It's not. It's the consistency that Renaissance has. Cowboy Carter just doesn't really have, and so I think that like that made me appreciate Renaissance so much more.
Well, and Cowboy Carter too, it has those like Willie Nelson interludes and like things like that
Yeah.
that don't necessarily exist on Renaissance. But I think and I think it was an effort of trying to make it seem like seamless in the transition as Renaissance going because I think it obviously I think she's more aware of the dips that it has rather than like Renaissance. But I don't think it was necessarily successful at bridging that together, if that makes sense. I think, and Maria, you were saying something before
Yeah, yeah,
about
and that kind of goes right into what you're saying too, because when we got to experience the tour, like I was saying before, there was a lot of interludes in between sections of the concert that definitely added a lot to the entire experience. And we're saying like, oh, we want the live album, we want to be able to experience those interludes again. I think if Beyond, or excuse me, if Renaissance was initially released with those interlude tracks actually included on the album, it would make the interludes that are on Cowboy Carter that make it seem a little bit more disjointed. It would make Cowboy Carter make more sense if Renaissance
Mhm.
had the live interludes that we got to experience at the tour. I think it would like completely change our
totally
perception of Cowboy Carter as a body of work if we kind of had that mirrored when we had first gotten Renaissance. I think it would elevate the experience. However, like we know that Renaissance is already perfect as it is, so it's hard to like look back retrospectively and like want it to be different because it's like what more could you want? But yeah, I do
I
think that would
just
kind
want
of
the
like change
live
it a bit.
album so bad. I feel
We
like it
just
would
need it.
I just I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish because I just know that it would be so good. Like I don't think if the live album came out, I don't think it would be something that no one would want or feel that it was unnecessary. I feel like it would honestly just bring a resurgence back to Renaissance. But
Yeah, literally.
she doesn't want to give it to us, so we're not going to get it.
I guess we just won't. And we'll buy our Sir Davis whiskey and we'll get our sacred hair products and we'll spray our Saint Noir perfume and we'll just deal with it.
Something else that I want to say that like Cowboy Carter kind of made me appreciate about Renaissance. And I think this is like entirely my own personal bias of like not digging deep enough, but I think Renaissance is a deceptively, I don't think you understand how personal it is, and revealing it is initially, but I think it's an incredibly personal album. Um, so much of it is this really beautiful emotional, heartfelt tribute to her Uncle Johnny, who was this really important figure in her childhood. I would say probably like the most important like black queer person in her life, that kind of like shaped so much of who she is as an artist and who she is as a person. And having this album as like this kind of document and memorial to him. And I know that like he's also featured so much on the tour. Like I find that really moving, actually. Kind of the I'm kind of getting a little bit emotional like thinking about it. I think it's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And like Cowboy Carter obviously has like moments like that as well. Of like I like Protector is like one of those moments of like talking about like her children. But I don't know, there's just something about the way that Renaissance like handles his legacy. Like it's the kind of music that like he would love and that like he would like be like dancing to
Totally.
and like
Yeah.
listening to that. I think that's really beautiful. And it like kind of adds so many emotional layers to songs that like are like a lot of them are like about like love and sex and dancing and whatever, but like it adds so much like emotional depth, the fact that it is this really personal tribute both to him and also just to like her queer fans of color.
Mhm.
It's so good.
Well, since I kind of did our album intro, our listeners can definitely assume how I feel about the album as a work of art. Just to go a little bit more into my kind of thoughts and feelings. I actually didn't listen to Renaissance right when it came out. It took me a couple of months, and admittedly, before Renaissance, I was kind of like a very surface level Beyonce fan. Like I hadn't really done like album deep dives, any of that. Like I hadn't really gotten deeper than like the surface or the tip of the iceberg, if you will. So Renaissance really was my entry point, reluctantly so, to the world of Beyonce. Um, However, though, like really once I listened to it, it was just like, oh, okay. So this is what I've been missing out on. And yeah, my relationship with this album got like very serious very fast. It really became just every single day listening to it front to back, front to back. And I would say with pretty strong confidence that I think that if Spotify, since I'm a Spotify user, I think if Spotify gave you stats for like your most listened to album, I have no doubt that Renaissance would be my most played album of all time on the platform.
Mm.
I would just listen to it so consistently, especially last year, having the tour that summer and just like really building my connection to it and just like
Easily, it's like the
wanting
best concert ever. Like,
best
right?
concert,
Like,
best concert I've ever been to, period. And it's that's like it's honestly easy to say. Like we
it's
left
very
that
easy. Yeah.
concert and I'm like, that was the best concert I've ever been to. Um, I will say I think I had more of an emotional experience at the Chromatica Ball. That was my first time seeing Gaga ever, and honestly, that was really emotional for me. And Drew will say, classic story. I didn't have tickets for it because those tickets for the Chromatica Ball actually went on sale before COVID happened. Question
And
mark?
then there was all this talk about how it's gonna get canceled because it was kind of like um like the time of COVID when concerts were
Yeah,
coming back and we were like, is our show getting get canceled? Is it not? And
yeah,
so it kind of came back and I had tickets before because I'd bought tickets during the general sale and Maria did
yeah,
not. The
yeah. I did
resident
not.
little monster did not.
That's so
Yeah.
crazy,
And
Marianne.
the night before the Chromatica Ball, they released like a few tickets. Like they just had,
Yeah.
I'm guessing like they just had some that they didn't sell or whatever. And literally, I think it was like 11 p.m. the night before Maria, Little Monster, still no tickets.
Still no ticket. And
And I call
something
her, I go,
that
what do we have to do to get you to go? And then she went, so you're welcome.
yeah, literally. It's all thanks to Drew. Because I literally wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have checked. Because I think for me, like, I mean, I've just loved Lady Gaga forever. And it felt like something that was just like, just not feasible. Like, it just felt like I would just never see her. So I think I was just like kind of reluctant to even try and look. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna even be able to get tickets, whatever. So I was just like, that was just kind of not in the picture for me. Like, oh, I'll just never get to see her. It'll be fine. But for non-Chicago folks, if you're ever going to a concert at Wrigley Field, you have to purchase tickets for anything that happens at Wrigley through the MLB website. So there
Which is
I am,
horrible.
which is
Horrible.
crazy.
Yeah,
But there
that's
I
terrible.
am
Which is
getting
also funny
tickets.
because then you get emails afterwards, like, come to this baseball
Yes.
game. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, did you know what I attended at Wrigley Field that would make you think that I would want to go to a Cubs game?
No, it's like I just tried to get tickets for my parents when they were visiting in December to go to the stupid like Christmas thing, and now they are trying to get me to attend every single baseball game in America. No, I don't want that.
Note,
Sorry.
we are not going.
We're not
No
going.
baseball.
No
Baseball's
baseball.
boring. We're not going.
Literally, it's the stupidest sport. I'm sorry. My grandpa was a professional baseball player in the 40s. Love you, grandpa. It sucks. It's horrible.
Oh my gosh, Levi Lord just dropped.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
Levi
Levi
Lore.
Lore. Yeah.
Love.
Love you. Love you, grandpa. Rest in peace.
Yeah. So to that point though, of Chromatic Ball and all that, that was very emotional for me. But Renaissance, best concert I've ever been to. Production incredible. Seeing Beyonce literally perform in front of your eyes is
It's a once in a
otherworldly.
lifetime. I highly recommend, even if you're not like a Beyonce stan. Like I genuinely think that you would have an amazing time if you appreciate like great production, great voice, great performer.
Yeah,
If you appreciate a great concert, then you should definitely go see Beyonce.
100%. So yeah, hands down, best concert experience. So yeah, I just built my relationship with the album very quickly, and it's really like every listen I would just kind of like look up a little bit more into like, why does the song sound this way? I think there's a sample in there, and trying to dissect everything, and you really just end up learning so much. So
Mhm.
I just
And
really love the experience, and we've been fortunate too to be able to like go out to Scarlet that we mentioned before and experience all of these songs live like in a club, and it's just undescribable. So
yeah, it's insane. Hearing it in a club is definitely another experience as well as to hearing it live. Um, it definitely goes off. And you get that same kind of feeling too that you got when you're watching it, but it's a different thing. If you like, you get the same feeling when you're in a club listening to it that you have when you're seeing it being performed, but it is kind of like a different thing. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but no,
yeah,
Well, and
it's one of
I
those
feel
that's
like
so
that
fun.
also that happens just anytime there's like just any song from Renaissance played. Like
Yes, even Cuff It alone.
Cuff It, the second Cuff It comes on in a bar or club, like there's a magic in the air. People are
Yeah.
yeah,
excited that that song is playing.
it is magic.
And it's not just a Beyonce thing either. I feel like it's a
No,
singular Renaissance
yes,
thing.
it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. There's a magic about the album. It elicits such a response from people.
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Cool.
yeah,
Well,
Renaissance, you're famous.
so famous. You're our
So
album of the
famous.
year. Wait, so what are we getting into next? So after we kind of go through every album, Levi, I don't know if you wanted to explain. So there's
Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So we are going to after we kind of have our general conversation about the album, we are going to break down a few of our favorite songs and a song that maybe didn't transcend for us as much. So, one of the things that we love to do song sorters. Jesse Pinkman on Tumblr, you are a
a
national
god.
hero. You literally, where's your Presidential Medal of Freedom?
Purple
Um,
Heart.
like literally, like Stan Twitter is built off of your back. Like Jesse Pinkman, you are a supermodel, you are a
Is that for
diva.
sure that person's name?
Yes,
Yes,
Jesse
but
Pink.
that's the
Yes.
name of a character. That's the name of a character from Breaking Bad. That's what's his name's character.
Oh,
Oh,
that's what's his name's character. Yes, the Aaron Paul.
Yes.
Yes.
We're
Oh, yeah, but
cultured. We're cultured.
we're cultured. Aaron Paul, Idaho resident, grew up in Idaho. So,
Oh my God.
yes, and a spectacular house, right? He has that insane
yes.
house that's on Architectural Digest all the time.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's a very good house. Very good house. Eagle, Idaho, mama. Yeah, but no, Jesse Pinkman on Twitter. He's the user that like does pretty much all of like the song sorters. And so we always do song sorters. We always are like sending our rankings to each other. And so we're not going to do a full ranking because that would just I think be too much. But what we are going to do, we're going to share our top three songs. They're going to be our Holy Trinity. So we're going to all go through our Holy Trinity, our top three songs, and then we'll also discuss and share our least favorite song, and that is called, we're going to ask each other, what's your me? Referencing obviously the worst song ever created, Me, featuring Brendan Urie, Panic at the Disco. Um, a horrible
It's
moment for
by
me.
Taylor Swift. Let's not gloss over that.
Uh, okay, Miss Thing, you didn't need to do Taylor. She's been dragged enough from me. Let me try to tack it on to stupid Panic at the Disco.
I know you're trying to say it's a Panic at the Disco
It's
song,
Panic at the
which
Disco
would
song.
it
Yeah.
would be doing Panic a favor. Let's be real.
Oh, I
Oh,
mean, that's true. Yeah. I mean, me is just like, me is April 26th. 2019. It was a low
But
point
you're
for a
acting like
Swiftie.
it was a dark day in Levi history. However, it was not.
It was a day
You
that
ran through the campus of Loyola University Chicago saying that this was the greatest lead single ever
yeah.
put out
Yeah, I
by
did. I
Blondie.
did. I did, and I would do it again. I'm so far up her ass. I can see out of her eyes, but it's, looking back on it, it was Stockholm Syndrome. It was hypnosis. It was
Were you silent or
propaganda.
were you silenced?
I was silenced.
Right.
I was silenced.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I would have told anybody that Me was her best lead single, but no, it's an abomination. It honestly probably caused COVID-19. It was probably the first like
Patient
cell.
zero.
Yeah, patient
I think
zero.
Stupid Love might have caused COVID, but we can talk about that at a later date.
Well,
Oh,
Stupid
if
Love
anyone
is
caused COVID, it's Smile.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
girls.
Smile featuring P. Diddy.
Well, girl,
Oh,
COVID was already happening.
Well, Girl Smile by P. Diddy was created in the studio and then
Oh, and
that was the that
so
was the Delta variant.
that was right. Yeah, that was Omicron. Omicron was Smile.
Omicron?
Isn't that what it's called?
Omicron.
Omicron.
Are you sure?
Either way, not important.
Omicron.
Who told you that?
So what's your
Omicron.
name?
CDC. Dr. Fauci told me
Are you
personally.
guys sure it's not Omicron?
Omicron?
It's
We'll have the fact checkers check it. It's fine.
fact
Our
checkers,
team of fact
studio,
checkers.
producers.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay,
So
so I think we should start negative. I think we should start negative and end positive.
Right.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna start with Drew. Drew, what is your me off of
So my
Renaissance?
me for Renaissance, even though it's very hard, I feel like any other album, it's kind of easy to do a me. And this album, honestly, it kind of is easy to do a me, but it's harder. Um, so my me for Renaissance is thick.
Mm.
ooh,
Womp womp.
womp
And
womp.
I mean, it's like one of those, I don't really have a reason. It just like isn't one that I'm like jumping up and down dancing to like crazy when I'm hearing it. Um, but I love it and I love listening to it. But yeah, that would be my me for this one.
And we have to say, there's that thick is also towards the bottom for me, but there's that amazing that part, the
That
like
bridge or
the
whatever
Brit
that,
is yes
yeah.
the in the island that just out of college that do this usually like that is
I
like
don't know what you do to me.
Me thick is towards the top for you, right, Maria?
We
No.
can get into mine later.
Okay.
oh
This is about you.
this this
Wait,
is
so
your
do I do my
moment.
Holy Trinity as well?
No, we're just doing me. So
Okay.
Maria,
Okay.
actually, what is your me?
Okay. So I'll preface with something similar to what Drew said. With that, this is like asking me if you put 16 diamonds in front of my face and said, pick out the worst diamond. It's so hard because all of these songs, again, are perfect. However, the one that ends up at the bottom of my song sorter pretty consistently is Plastic Off the Sofa.
Mm.
Um, and it's just so hard
Wow.
because like there's nothing about the song that's bad, and the riffs that she does towards the end of this track are like inhuman. It's crazy. With the other tracks on this album, though, it's like I just visit that song the least often, which is why it ends up at the bottom. There's really nothing about it that I'm like, I don't like about it specifically. I mean, it does kind of begin a slower moment on the album since we go from, I think, Alien Superstar into Plastic Off the Sofa, if I'm not mistaken. Um, oh no, I'm
I
sorry.
think
We go
that's
from
wrong.
Church Girl. We go Church
Yeah.
Girl into Plastic Off the Sofa. And Church Girl has so much energy. So it definitely starts like a bit of a slower moment. So maybe that's a reason why I just don't go to it as often, since most of the songs on this album again are just like so higher energy. But Plastic Off the Sofa is an amazing song. I really love it, but I visit it the least, and that's why it ends up at the bottom.
Yeah. Um, somebody asked me what my me is.
What's your me?
It's also Plastic Off the Sofa. Yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
it's
I
just
didn't.
it's for me.
Wow.
For me, Plastic Off the Sofa is like I think it's the I'm not saying it's not a bad song. It's not a bad song. It's very pleasant to listen to. I think it's the least needed on the album. To me, it feels the most like previous Beyonce, like kind of like post, like pre self-titled Beyonce albums. It
Yeah.
feels like less distinctly Renaissance. I think Virgo's Groove is also kind of like the other ballad like moment on the album, and I think Virgo's Groove fits in a lot more with the rest of Renaissance and kind of the entire sonic landscape of it than Plastic Off the Sofa. Plastic Off the Sofa is just like it feels a bit more standard and straightforward. I think it doesn't have as much of that singular Renaissance magic that the rest of the songs do. It's not bad at all. Um, but
I
it's
do
like,
think though, I think it brings like I think a lot of Beyonce fans who wouldn't necessarily get into Renaissance, I think that song does kind of bring them in. Like I know it's a lot of people's like top for who who necessarily wouldn't like the sound of Renaissance.
yeah, that's fair.
So I think, but no, obviously your points are very valid.
That is so fair, but this is not a safe space for those people. Plastic off the sofa, put the plastic on the sofa because it is the me for me. Okay, now let's be positive. Drew, what is your holy trinity?
So my Holy Trinity, my number three off of Renaissance is Energy, which at many times has been my number one, but it's
Correct.
progressively gotten to three. My two is Heated, and my number one is Move. Move is like insane to me. I am
You
like
were the biggest
obsessed with
move
Move.
warrior. I don't think Grace
Drew,
Jones
number
likes
one
move
move
as much as you
And
do.
warrior.
I maybe have never experienced something more iconic than watching her do that bridge of Move live. I think that was the moment I looked over at Maria and I was like, "Oh, like I think Maria and I's souls will be staying in Soldier Field. I don't think this is
Yep.
something we're bringing with us outside of the concert."
You guys are
Um,
Yeah.
like blood brothers because of Renaissance.
oh, it
Literally.
was her doing that. And Move was like mid-tier for me going into the concert, but ever since it's gotten like so far up. Um, but yeah, it's definitely Move for me.
I kind of love it when like songs hit you like that. When like you like have one
Totally.
relationship with them before you hear them live, and then hearing them live like makes things click for you. I love that when
It's
that
it's
happens.
almost like Move to me just feels very like theatrical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's Beyonce doing like Moulin Rouge.
Yeah. The song it really has the quality to it that like something is bubbling underneath it, you know?
Yes.
Like it very much has that feeling of like, oh my God, something is about to occur that is going to be legendary, world
And then you get to the
altering
bridge and
forever.
the thing does occur.
And then it happens. Yeah. It has like that really awesome quality of like anticipation.
Yes,
Mm.
totally.
Like it really feels like you're in a space where it's like, oh my gosh, the lights, I'm dancing, whatever. This is magic. Something like this is never going to happen again. Like that sort of moment of just like the
Yes.
singularity of being out for one night or experiencing something exactly once. So yeah, I totally resonate with what
Oh,
you're
I
saying.
love that. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, that's my
Maria.
Holy Trinity.
Maria, what is your holy
Slay.
trinity?
Yes. So, I will say throughout the time I've listened to this album, every time I do a song sorter, it changes very, very drastically. So I've done it recently in preparation for our conversation, and this is the top three that I've got right now. It's been very different at other points in the past, and it'll be different in the future. So, with that being said, number three, Pure Honey. Number
Mm.
two, Cozy. And number one is Virgo's Groove.
Which is
I
crazy
think,
because that's never
which is
been your number
crazy.
one.
You've never talked about Virgo's Groove in your entire life.
I think I have a way of doing that, of being like, oh, this is my favorite song of all time and never saying anything about it. But I mean, Virgo's Groove is perfect. It's
It
literally
is
perfect.
perfect.
So incredible. I every time I listen to it, and it's like a 6 minute song. I
It
mean,
doesn't
it's
feel like it at
really
all.
long. It's almost exactly 6 minutes, and it's just pure magic the entire time you're listening to it. I will say though, it's like so crazy because Plastic Off the Sofa ends up being at the bottom usually, but the transition from Plastic to Virgo's Groove is like otherworldly. It's so incredible how
Mm.
those songs flow into each other. And I appreciate that so much, but usually I just like never start with Plastic Off the Sofa. But Virgo's Groove is just so incredible. I love Cozy so much. Experiencing that live was just insane. I
Yeah, that's the
loved how they
robot
ended up
dance
doing
thing.
that. It's with the robots. So incredible. And then yeah, Pure Honey, I will just always love that. Though also when they did it live, that was when they had the dancers spotlighted because Beyonce went to change, I think, during that because then she reappeared on the horse that flew. So Pure Honey Live had the dance break, which someone, thank God, ripped that soundboard and put it onto YouTube so you can actually listen to the live version of Pure Honey with the instrumentals from that dance break.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I think at some spots on the tour as well, Kevin Jay-Z Prodigy was there to do live like riffing over the music, which
Wait,
was
that's
so
cool. I don't
cool.
remember that.
Yeah, it might have been a couple, it might have just been the last one, but it's also incredible and so cool. So I love Pure Honey so much, but that's my Holy Trinity. So Levi, what is yours?
Okay, Pop Girlies Nation. This is my Holy Trinity. Coming at number three, I'm kind of shocked that this wasn't in any of your guys's. Heated. Heated is
It
just
was my
like,
number two.
oh,
Oh,
oh, for
critical thinking,
sure.
critical listening.
I'm listening, I'm laughing, I'm learning,
You're
I'm
loving, you're listening,
loving,
you're
I'm
learning.
listening.
Good.
Well then great minds think alike, Drew. Yeah, Heated is just like the rap of Heated is like it's
Yeah. I have a
you
very funny
can't beat
story
it.
about that song with Maria. Would you like me to share?
I think
Please
you need to
share.
share right now.
So we're in Scarlet, bar of all of our dreams. Um, and they especially when Renaissance was out and the tour is happening, they did a lot of nights where they play the album front to back, which highly recommend. But we were not at one of those nights. So we were just at a normal like Friday night, I think, and the DJ was playing and we had decided that it was time to leave. So we're walking out and when we're leaving, Heated starts playing. And I when we walk out together, because it's always crowded, I always like hold my hand back so that B and Maria can like get out quickly. And then as soon as Heated starts playing, I feel the hand release. And I'm like, oh, okay, so we're not leaving. So I look over and Maria's just like, oh, let's just let's wait till the song's over. So we're like, okay, we gotta listen to Heated. So then by the time we get to the most iconic part of the song, probably top moment of the album, the heated rap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I look over and Maria is literally screaming the heated rap at word for word, not missing a beat, with this other gay man at the bar. And
I love how you said
lit
other gay man as if like inferring that Maria is a gay man. That's how it sounds.
As if it's not a gay bar, by the way.
so anyway, they're screaming the stuff. They're screaming it. And they're not missing a beat. And Maria is it's like it was comparable to like Cabinet Battle Hamilton.
Correct.
And so it happens like the Uncle Johnny part, goes off. And then the song ends and Maria goes, "Okay, time to go. Let's go."
All right,
And
let's
then
go.
we just walk out. Mic drop. So that was the
I,
highlight.
I I
I
I bid that man
love
adieu,
Heated
and
in
I
the
said,
bar.
all right, let's go.
She said, "I did what I needed to do and it's time to go."
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll
that the
also
rap just
add,
kind of does something. It possesses you.
yeah, really does. And something about that night as well is that whoever was DJing that night was also playing heated at like point one, like 1.5 speed. So it was faster than like the
And she
actual
was
studio
still not missing
recording.
a beat.
No, no.
No.
I could be no. Ask me in 30 years to do the heated rap and I will do it and not miss a word. So someone make a note of that.
Yeah. Production, studio, make a note. Producers.
Production. Thank you.
Um, yeah. So
So
for
Levi.
me, well, Heated is all I just have to say, I have to highlight there's an amazing Taylor Beyonce fan cam to the rap of Heated. That was my gateway into the song. It's the only thing I think about. Like there is a specific part of the rap where I can only see Taylor in the I Bet You Think About Me music video. And in her little red pantsuit. Like it's so good. So yeah, that's my number three. My number two is America Has a Problem. I love this kind of like darker sound. That like second half of the album, I think, is my favorite half. Um, America Has a Problem reminds me a bit of one of my favorite Sasha Fierce songs, Sweet Dreams. It kind of has like a similar, like dark, almost like kind of sinister vibe. And I love the way that like the melody rides it. I think it's so cool. And then number one is Alien Superstar. Alien Superstar is like that immediately hit me. I was like, oh, this is where we are. It is weird and galactic and catchy and kind of everything that Renaissance is. Like that is Renaissance in its essence to me. So yeah, that's my holy trinity. Alien Superstar, you are um a legendary
She's that
legend.
girl.
You're that girl and I love you. So
Love.
yeah,
Delicious
okay.
wing.
So Drew, take us to our last stop.
So how we will our last kind of bit of info that we will share on each album is a little poke fun at something called Pitchfork.
Some
Something
entity. Yeah.
which I won't harp too much on because sometimes I get a little mad when we talk about Pitchfork.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have a very
But
love or
so
hate relationship.
so we're gonna give a rating out of 10 to the decimal um each episode. So I would like to, I'm calling it Drew Fork, Levi Knife, Maria Spoon. So the Drew Fork rating for Renaissance, which is very rare, it's a 10 for me, 10.0. Yeah, it's perfect. But I will say moving forward, probably not gonna have very many tens. Maria, what's the Maria Spoon?
Maria Spoon. Well, thank you. And I also totally agree. We're starting at a very interesting place because I'm not just going to be giving tens out. However, it's a 10. Like I I really can't even start to say anything to like justify a 10 because I don't really have to. It's literally a perfect 10. So yeah, that's where we're starting off. So good luck to any album that we talk about after this.
Levi Knife.
Levi Knife.
So Levi Knife rating. I think I'm gonna match Pitchfork. Actually, I think I'm gonna give it a 9.0. I think it signifies its kind of like objective, like perfection in the craft of the album and its impact on a listener. I think it's missing that extra point up to a 10 just because of like it still isn't the album that I really connect with personally. I mean, I think that like when you're thinking critically about albums, I think it has to kind of be a mixture of okay, like what is like objective excellence, and then also like what do I have a really personal connection with? Like what do I gravitate towards? And it's still not the album in Beyonce's discography that I'm going to gravitate towards, but you just can't argue with it. It's just kind of pretty much perfection, start to finish. So yeah, I'm giving it a 9, which I would like to say still very good. I mean, it's
29
still
out of 30. I mean,
yeah, like I mean, it's Levi Knife loves you, Beyonce. Levi Knife loves you.
well,
Um,
what a great first episode, may I say.
yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
shout out to Beyonce. Thanks for making the best album of all time. We know you're listening.
thank
So,
you,
or maybe
oh,
Beyonce.
Blue.
Love
Hey,
you.
Blue. Hey, Blue. You did so good on the tour, girl. Hope
e-
you subscribe for
except
future
you mean the tour
episodes.
that you didn't get to see her on?
Yeah, well, she didn't come out for our show, but you saw her, so maybe you have more insight, girl.
Wait,
Okay.
okay, Levi, why don't you give the listeners a little hint at what's to come?
Yeah, so at the end of every episode, the person who picks the next week's album is going to give a little bit of a hint. And so uh, I think it's safe to say, after initially kind of diving into the Pop Girlies Nation with Renaissance, we're going to have the next three episodes are going to be explorations of our respective Pop Girlies. And so for me, I'm starting that off. Uh, and all I can say about the next album is there is not a lot going on at the moment with it.
Oh,
Um,
Dot, dot, dot.
dot, dot, dot.
oh.
So, uh,
Let that
yeah,
sink in.
let that sink in, listeners. Do your research. Go to the history books. Figure out what that means. Until then, I think Pop Girlies are going to sign off.
Yes. Thanks for listening.
Yes. Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.